All right, welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, the 30th of July, 2025, and this is the Cluster API office hours. Cluster API is a subproject of Kubernetes SIGs, and as such, we follow their meeting guidelines, which can basically be summarized as please treat each other as you would expect to be treated, or explicitly so, please be kind to each other. And if you'd like to ask a question or talk, please raise your hand and I will call on you. So at the beginning of our meetings, we'd like to give a chance for new attendees to say hi and welcome themselves to the community. But I don't think we actually have anyone new here right now. If anyone would like to say hi to the community, please take a chance now. And let's look at the open proposal readouts. Uh, Nolan, do you want to talk about the propagate taints?
I can talk a little bit about it. I can say there hasn't been a whole lot of movement on it in the last few weeks, but I'm getting back to it later this afternoon. Um, I know Stefan and Joel have commented on here. I've also talked with Fabrizio offline about some changes that he'd like to see. Um, so the two big things that need to get incorporated here are making sure we support two use cases for taints. One for flagging node as initialization to say, are we ready to hand the node over for use yet or not? And then there is another for longer term, like day two operations, saying this node is for this type of workload. For example, tagging it as a local zone cluster or tagging it as like a GPU workload cluster, or segments of that cluster. So this you can say this cluster has workers that can be addressed as part of a local zone or GPU or some other special requirement. Um, so I need to update the proposal to account for those two use cases. And then in talking to Fabrizio, he had informed me, and I hadn't realized that cluster classes can deploy machine sets or machine deployments with multiple, um, or it can deploy multiple of each of those. So you could have different groupings there, and we need to account for that at the cluster class level. So I need to make sure that what's in here is sufficient for that, if there need to be changes.
Cool. Joel, you got your hand up.
I do. I just wanted to see. So one of the use cases I suggested was around this kind of difference of having the initialization taints and the then like always on taints, which is obviously a thread that's on the screen. Is that something that people generally believe is actually likely to be used? Um, the reason I brought this up is because I saw a case recently where we were like, actually having an ability to initialize the node would be very useful. But then once I've done the initialization, I don't need that taint on there in the future. Um, but I don't want to just add that because I have one particular use case and no one else thinks it's useful. So yeah, just kind of looking for community feedback if they think this distinction is worth it.
Can can I ask what was the use case that you had? Because I know of one. I just want to see if yours is the same one.
MCO.
Okay, so that is not necessarily the one I was thinking of.
Okay.
Um, well, maybe it is. I know at the moment Bootstrap providers use them. Uh, Specifically, the Cube one uses it, and by putting it by providing support here, we could unify that across Bootstrap providers. Um, that might be an advantage, but yeah, I would be curious if there's.
So
I
it's
guess
a
it is bootstrapping concern, so that's where it would most likely affect things.
yeah, it's a very similar use case, but I think slightly different in that
Okay.
I believe these taints would not be added using the register with taints, right? So I'm expecting the flow generally would be that the Bootstrap provider provides the CAPI taint with the register with taints, and then these taints get added afterwards.
I see.
So it would be more about a secondary system outside of the Bootstrap provider wanting to provide additional initialization, which I think is how it would work within OpenShift because our our Bootstrap provider, the part that installs OpenShift on a node is a secondary thing. We do the kind of Bootstrap, it becomes a node, and then they go and do a bunch of stuff to make it into an OpenShift node.
Okay.
So that secondary part, I could imagine in the future, we have register with taints with the Cappy taint. Uh, yeah, we would end up with three different kinds of taints. Um, register with taints for the Cappy taint. The Cappy machines do their initialization, add these additional taints. They remove the Cappy bootstrap taint, and then the external systems can go and say, right, now I can see my initialization taint is there. So I'll go do my init process and then I'll remove that. And then nothing should re-add it, is the theory.
So yeah, so I guess what you're saying is there is the bootstrap concern. There is a middle ground where it's after the bootstrap, but before long running and then long running.
Yeah, I guess imagine like, so obviously the cloud provider, CCMs, they use a taint today for their initialization. If that wasn't at the register with taint stage, you could, in theory, add it onto the nodes here and have the CCMs initialize once the machine has initialized the nodes, as it were. It would be that kind of like secondary initialization of additional systems and allow, let's say a networking thing wanted to do some initialization, or maybe GPUs need to be initialized and we're having a taint for that as well. It could be something like that. Or yeah, Joe, that's a good suggestion as well.
So yeah, Joe, I saw you raised your hand and lowered your hand. Was that the question you wanted to ask? Or because I have a question too. And I see
It was-
Steve.
I was just gonna offer that use case, but I just put it in chat.
Cool. Thank you. So yeah, I have a question about like even calling it initialization if you're going to put it here. Like if the taint, so one of the prime use cases for this, at least as far as where I'm sitting, is like Carpenter, when we're using it with Cluster API, we need taints to be applied to the nodes as they're initialized, right? As they're actually like, like we need the kubeadm bootstrapper in most cases to be able to add those taints to the kubelet initialization. So I think like calling it on initialization here is going to be, it might be confusing for users who might see that and expect that that taint would be injected with the kubelet command line flags. Because like in the case of Carpenter, if we have a node that comes up and then another controller adds the taint after it's already started, that will cause Carpenter to get like very unhappy if it happens to look at the node before the taint is applied. So I think we have to be careful about like, calling it initialization if we know that it's happening after the kubelet has already been initialized, because I think that it could be confusing to people. Stefan, please.
Yeah, but I basically wrote in the chat. So I guess if you have bootstrap provider which already has a register with supports using the kubelet register with taints, then this is like there's no reason why if you use a bootstrap provider like that, why you would have to use an
Right.
initialization taint, right? The other thing about initialization, I guess there are different kinds of initialization, right? I don't know if there is something like a kubelet initialization. I do know that basically cloud providers have their concept of initialization. And I do know that sort of Cluster API has it now because we are like with the optional contract, we're adding an uninitialized taint and then we're removing it once we sync labels and annotations for the first time. So yeah, I guess I don't know what wording I would use if you want to go down that road. But
Yeah, I think that
I
for
guess
me,
initialization is fine in general. I mean, it has to be clear that it maps to our initialization and not any other sort of initializations that might be around.
right. Well, right. That the persistence question here is really that's the key thing. It's like, do you want this only to be applied once, or do you want it to be applied multiple times, like continually applied, right? That to me seems like the more interesting decision to make here.
And it
If
does
if
have a
it
temporal
were,
component.
sorry, no.
I was just gonna say it's not just that it's applied once; it's a temporal component that will then remove it.
Wait,
Yeah,
but Copy wouldn't remove it, right?
correct. My concern with calling it apply once is that might imply that it would happen later, and I'm expecting that this only happens while Cappy hasn't removed its own initialization taint. So it feels like it's part of the machine initialization to happen here. Whereas a apply once, well, when is that? Does that raise that question?
Yeah, that's why I said it has a temporal component. But yeah, maybe it's a happening initialization. Being able to communicate it comes after register with taints would be useful, I think.
Yeah, because like I said, my expectation seeing taints propagated as a user when I look at these things is like, oh, my node's going to come up with that taint on it, right? When really what's going to happen is there's a controller somewhere that's going to apply it for you once the node has already come up. So that's like, that distinction needs to be, I think, really clear to users. Anyways, appreciate the unexpected conversation here. Does anyone else have questions or comments about that? Yeah, I like on machine initialization. That's a good one, Joel. All right. Lubomir's got a point here in chat. It says exposing taints from machine template that then propagate to the kubelet config kubelet flags on node init sounds like a bad idea. That it's already supported with kubeadm kubelet configuration patches. Yeah, I think we would want to do the same thing, right? Like if a user needs them to be in the kubelet flags, they should be using the kubeadm config if they're using that bootstrapper. All right. So I guess the next one is chained and efficient upgrades for clusters with managed topologies. Do we have anyone who wants to talk to this one? Fabrizio, perhaps.
No update. I will take over after as soon as possible after release. But
Okay.
I think that the proposal we is settled down. I think it is ready to merge. So it is as a matter to, and I also have a twin PR for half of the implementation. So I hope that after release this will move fast.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. So getting on to our discussion topics. We have just a few today. I'm guessing, Matt, maybe this is you, or does someone else want to
Sure,
speak
yeah.
to the 111 release?
Another week, another beta release. The dust has still not settled on V1 Beta 2, I think is the TLDR here. Lots of changes went in. And next Tuesday will be the first release candidate, assuming we're on schedule. So realistically, that means hopefully you have your PRs out there already if you want them to land for the release candidate. Yeah. Do the maintainers want to talk about any of the changes specifically here?
I'm not sure about any of that specifically, but the current status basically that we now are doing basically the finishing touches here. That's the title thing. So we are picking up the latest stuff from the Kube API linter. And basically the current findings that we're fixing is that we use omit empty and omit zero appropriately on a few remaining optional and required fields where we didn't do it already. So there's one huge PR from my side that is not entirely ready yet for review. And Fabrizio got a few smaller ones in. But yeah, we're still hoping to get this done until next week. Probably realistic. If there are some turbulences in CI, be looking at them and trying to fix them up as they occur. No, so on top of like the changes, we also merged two PRs, which basically added additional validation to our end-to-end tests. Now that I say it, it might not have been a super great idea. But anyway, basically, we are now across more tests are testing that after the test, the source versions are staying stable and that the available and ready conditions are all true. And basically, because we got all of that in, there are a few new issues popping up, but we are on it to fix them up as well. Just towards release team. Sorry. Yeah, should work out.
Awesome. Yeah, great to hear. Although, like, hopefully there's no more autoscaler bugs coming out of it, and I'm not sure we can handle anymore. So.
I'm not aware of any
Okay.
or any changes planned that would affect the autoscaler.
Cool. And then I saw that Igor had a question in chat about upgrading, and since I had asked this before, I thought I'd just bring it up here quick. I think eventually the migration information will be here, right? So like eventually we'll have a V10 to V11 page that gets added here, and that'll give people advice.
Yeah, we're writing controllers on top of cluster API, and we're using some of the V1 beta 2 conditions, and it looks like that, like as we upgrade, the way we access those might change. But yeah, I guess we'll see what how the migration guidance looks.
Cool. Yeah, I would imagine it should be pretty straightforward. Okay. Thanks, Matt. I guess you've also got the next topic about joining the release team. So please.
Yeah, that's the message. V111 is winding down or will be within the next month, and so we want to have a new team in place, ideally, to support the V112, the next release cycle. I think everybody did a great job this time, and hopefully a lot of them want to return. But if you haven't done it before, it is a fairly low cost, in my opinion, way to have a big impact and to learn how CI works on CAPI, how the release process works, and both of those things are really parallel to many other Kubernetes projects and Kubernetes itself that you get into. So it's good expertise to build up, and it's very, very helpful for the maintainers and everybody else. So if you're at all interested, if you know someone who's interested, if you're watching the recording and you want to help out, just let us know in the Cluster API release channel or message me directly. And thanks very much.
Cool. Thank you, Matt. And I guess just put a note here. Reach out to Matt on Slack. I'm trying to remember what's your Slack handle. It's M Boersma, I think.
And Boersma, yeah. I try not to make people pronounce it.
Or in the what do we call it? Cluster API release.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, well, thank you as well, and thanks to all the people who work on our release team. I think it's amazing to watch the cadence at which these things are coming out, and I know sometimes as a consumer of Cluster API, it feels like drinking from the fire hose, right? It's just like there's a lot of stuff coming, a lot of great changes, and the V1 beta 1 to V1 beta 2, I think is huge, and yeah, like I echo Fabrizio's clapping in the emoji here. Like it's just amazing to watch and kind of be part of and everything. So thank you to everyone who's here today, everyone who's watching on recording, everyone who tries it out or submits a PR or opens an issue. Like you're all part of the team. We love it. So my vamping has indicated that we've reached the end of this meeting, unless people have ad hoc topics that they would like to add. There's no more provider updates, no feature group updates for today. So unless folks have something to add, we will close this meeting and take about 30 some minutes of our day back. So going once, going twice. All right, we'll call that a meeting. Thanks for coming out, everyone, and we'll see you next time.